Hello, all viewers. Welcome to the 74th Khelo Chess India Leeches team battle, and this is a 74th edition, guys. And all of the teams have been performing excellent in last few days. I am sorry, really, I could not do all the. I could not do live broadcast for all of the days. I had to take a break in between for some due to some work pressure. But we are back today, and I hope today we will be again having a very good time enjoying the live stream, analyzing the games and discussions that the questions you ask in the comment section, I am answering to them all. So it's going to be a very fun session and the one that we will enjoy for next 1 hour non-stop. So still 3 minutes and 15 seconds remaining on the clock for the tournament to start. Meanwhile, I'll just try to rest a bit, but if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them all. So just hit your questions in the comment box and I will be answering them very soon. Let's wait for a few minutes until we get the tournament started, but you can post your questions. I am waiting for your questions and make sure you like the video before you close the stream. All the viewers out there, just 2 minutes remaining. Meanwhile, I'm just waiting for if there are any questions. So just let me know in the comment section. And yes, we have couple of questions and couple of comments there. We have Bitopan Sharma saying hello, hello Bitopan. Hi, I hope you are doing well and you are playing chess today. Just let me know if you are playing chess today on this Khelo Chess India team battle. We have multi-nation team battle organizer. Hello, sir. Have liked the video. Thank you very much, multi-nation team battle organizer. We would be having many upcoming tournaments from this organizer. So we are hoping to have a very good time for all the multi-nation tournaments which will be organized by the multi-nation team battle organizer. So I hope all are ready. And 58 seconds. I'm switching the game window. So we'll be starting soon now. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. So just 45 seconds remaining on the clock, and we will be starting the game analysis. Let me just quickly share this URL with all the players also who are willing to ask their game to be analyzed. So let me just paste the link here. Tournament is live. Please let me know if you want to get your game analyzed. Okay, so let's start in about 3 seconds. Okay, Mayank, I can see your comment. Yeah. Okay. So we have the first game going on. Let's pick up the top game right now between GST Guna and Manish Kapoor. GST Guna is from the Chennai Chess Club. Manish Kapoor is from Prayagraj Future GM. So it's going to be a King's Indian defense. And with the c5 break, there are two options here in the King's Indian c5 and e5. You can play for the center break. So black is going for a c5 break, and it would be interesting how black, yeah, this is the one idea: e6, rook b8, and pawn to b5 to attack on the queen side. But white is making this prophylactic move, which is a4, which stop this b4 pawn and restrains black's activity on the queen side. So now h6 is played, so that this bishop g5 or ng5 moves are not available. Okay, so Bitopan Sharma, you can join So there are two ways. First is you can check the description box. There is in the description box there is a WhatsApp link. You can join our group, Mr. Vitopan Sharma. On the WhatsApp group, we daily publish the live tournaments, not live tournaments, but the leeches tournaments which you can participate and you can play. So that is one way you can join the and play the tournament. And there is a video that I have published. If you are new to leeches, how you can join the tournament and play the tournaments on leeches. So just check my video. If not, if you don't find the video, just let me know. I'll give you the URL. It will help you to start with the online chess. So bishop d7 is now played to support the b5 square here so that the b5 can be pushed. And the queen is now to c8. Probably queen will go to b7, or there could be a threat of bishop takes h3 later in the game with the help of this queen. Rook to f1. So white is all trying to double up in the f file. This exchange is, I think, going to come soon, and these two rooks in the f file are going to be a bit stronger as compared to the black's pieces. So interesting strategy by both the players, and white has very well stopped this b5 pawn. So it's one, two, three, and four supports, and we have black one, two, and three. Three supports from black. So this b5 is kind of stopped right now. And pawn f5 is interesting because if you're putting both the rooks in the f file, you should not close the file. Actually, you should keep the chances of getting the file open, because two rooks in a closed file, it's not effective. So whenever you put your rooks in any file, make sure that you are able to open that file. If not, then those rooks are going to be dead rooks. There is no use of putting the rook on f1 and f2 if this pawn is there on f5. So finally, black was able to get rid of the b pawn, and now I think black is going to get a good target on b2. But the problem here is, what is this bishop going to do in the game? Because there is only way this pawn h5, which can be captured by the queen. So if pawn, yeah, so now the knight is come. Now h5 is possible. H5, bishop h6, and then probably g4 if playable with this, with after king g7, then only this bishop can be exchanged. But this bishop has no other way to just get out and attack white here. So it's difficult position for black as well. He is not having any plans. Probably just he can, what he can do is to play rook b3 and put other rook on b8, trying to attack this b2 pawn. But I think bishop c1 will be sufficient to defend all the threats on the b2 pawn. And meanwhile, this knight can create some havoc if it reaches the e6 square, but that's not possible right now. Queen f3 actually should not have been played, because there is no use of putting the queen here. It's all closed. Everything is closed. There is a closed file. If white could have got any open file here, white could have got very good game. But pushing the pawn on f5, closing the king side, that's what actually black was hoping for. I think now h5, g4, pawn takes, and bishop h6 will be a good way to attack this bishop. It will give some way to exchange this bishop. So pawn h5, knight goes to h2, pawn g4, h takes g4, bishop h6, and then probably there will be something. Yep, pawn takes h5 can be played, bishop takes, rook takes, and then we have queen c1 check and queen takes rook. Right, so that's winning for black. So h5 was a good move for black here instead of rook to b4. Queen h4, king g7 cannot be played because of this check. So bishop comes back to g7 now. Knight can come to f8. Queen takes e7 is the move. And I think still we have rook takes e3, rook takes e3, and queen c1 check to win the rook. Rook takes e3 was oh, okay. Rook takes e3 was better move. Rook takes e3, rook takes e3. Okay, but the queen, no. So yeah, this was the best move. Rook takes e3. We still have it. I think black should win this one after rook takes e3. It's a free piece on e3 now. Yep, and I think that will help black to win here. So a tip for white here, GST Guna, you should not close the files. You should have opened the F file. It would have definitely helped you in creating a very good meeting attack over there. So black is having two extra pieces now, and I think there is nothing that. Uh, okay, rook can come to f1, queen takes f1, king takes f1, king h2 is playable. King h2, rook takes queen. Yeah. So the queen is going to go now, and I think this will be winning for black very easily. Queen takes f1 now. Yep, king takes f1 and rook takes queen. So just two passers here, but they won't be effective fighting against two bishop and knight over here. So white resigned. So the turning point of the game was pushing the pawn to f5, this position. And here, after rook e8, pawn f5 was played. This is what actually white should not have played. If you have two rooks, remember, don't close your file. Try to keep try to keep the chances of opening the file sometime in the future. So I can see a hello from Tushar. Hello Tushar Poddar. Hope you are doing well. Let's go back to the tournament now and try to find the next game. Okay, I can also see a comment from Ganesh. Yeah, it's joy to play this tournament. Thanks, Ganesh. We are also happy to have you playing this tournament every day. So right now, okay, Tushar Poddar says hello, sir. Hello, Tushar. Am I audible to you? Okay, let's try to pick up next game from. Let's check who all are playing from Khelo Chess India. King Nilesh is playing from Khelo Chess India. Let's try to pick up his game. Sony Atharva is also a very good player from the Chess Blasters. So it would be interesting to see what happened in the game. It was a e4, d6, upper defense, d4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and we have knight to h6. So the idea of knight h6 is probably to play the f6 pawn, knight to f7 and play e5. So let's see, bishop g5 was played, pawn f6, bishop h4, and this bishop, I think, yeah, it's not still away of the it's still not out of the game, but I think it might be affected after e5. I think this pawn is pinned, but yep, e5 is not possible right now because this pawn is pinned. But of course, knight is supporting. So it would be interesting. This bishop is playing an interesting role here of attacking the bishop. I can attacking the pawn. So castles, and queen e2, king to h8, and we have rook to d1, pawn to g5, bishop to g3, pawn to h6. So this is kind of a structure which will restrain your bishop. Sometime in the game you have to play this e5 move. So pawn to e5, white himself plays e5. So this will be interesting. Pawn takes e5, d takes e5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, and bishop goes to b3. So a safe place for the bishop. Both the bishops are placed beautifully, pointing towards the center. But this bishop would have been better if it would have been on c3 somewhere. Okay, so okay, white won the game, but let's check what happened in the actual game. We were at this position, yeah, this position. So knight went back to c6 now, and I think that's what black is going to play now, e5. So we have queen to e4, bishop to f5, queen to a4, and knight to e5 back. I don't understand the reason behind this move. I think e5 was supposed to be played here to get a good control over the center. e5, pawn to d4, pawn to f4. Everything will be well controlled if the pawn came to e5. But anyhow, knight was played to e5, and then we have pawn to f4, knight to g4, pawn takes g5, pawn takes g5, rook takes f5, rook takes f5, and queen takes g4. This is probably a miss by white here, black here. Look at this position, guys. The pawn f4 was a fantastic move here, and of course, knight g4 was playable, but I think still this knight e5 is a turning point of the game. Knight should have been back here, and then black should have played up e5. That would have been a better move because then f4 is stopped. This after e5, knight can come to d4, enjoy his life on attacking the b3, c2, e2, f3 squares. It can also go back to e6 if required and come to f4 if required. So it's a beautiful maneuver that this knight could have had if the pawn would have been on e5, but unfortunately her black started playing knight to e5 and then ended up in a bad position. So pawn to f4, knight to g4, and pawn takes pawn. So this is kind of a blunder here which black has missed completely. Pawn takes, queen, rook takes f5, rook takes f5, and queen takes g4. This reminds me of our Kasparov moment. So this is like It's going on the blender that Kasparov does, and it has an amazing effect on the screen. So that's what has happened here, guys. So let's go back to the live broadcast and let's try to pick up the next game now. Okay, let's go back to tournament and try to pick up the next game. Meanwhile, I can see a comment. Sir, how can I delete my previous account in Leeches? Is asked by Mr. Tushar Poddar. So Tushar, I will check if it's possible to delete it. And if possible, I'll definitely reply on this video itself. I need to check once how to delete your old account if you're not using it anymore. Okay, and let's try to pick up the next game. Let's try to pick up a game between Saurabh Khalsan is playing Unusual. Unusual is playing from uh, Prayagraj Future GMs versus Nishant. Let's check this game, guys. So we have e4, c6, knight f3, pawn to d5, e takes d5, c takes d5, and pawn to c4. A Caro-Kann exchange variation with pawn on c4. This is very difficult. I haven't seen this much actually. This is very rarely played. So pawn to d4 and now pawn to d3, knight to c6, knight to d2, pawn to e5, and bishop to e2, bishop to f5, castles, knight f6, knight rook to e1, bishop d6, and knight to b3. Now the idea is to push the c4 pawn, try to get another knight on, probably knight d2 and knight e4 or knight c4. So white won this one. Let's go back and check what happened in the game. So bishop, yeah, so few moves back. Yep, so knight f6, bishop d6, knight b3, castles and pawn c4, bishop to c7, bishop to g5, pawn h6, bishop h5, h4 and g5. G5 here is actually not a good move. Probably this can be the turning point of the game wherein the king is exposed. This castle is an exposed castle. So this probably is not the right move to play pawn h6 and pawn g5 right away. So let's see what happened in the game. Bishop g3 and knight to d5 and knight d5, bishop to f1 and pawn to f6. I can see a comment from Bitopan Sharma. Sir, which opening you like most? Bitopan, I like open openings, I mean, wherein the pawns are exchanged, and I don't like to play the close positions. So mostly I try to play the Sicilian from black side or even the England gambit from against d4. And also sometimes I like to play e4 and d4 both moves from white side. So it's like a mix, but I prefer playing the open openings, open positions rather than close positions. So knight e4, and then we have bishop takes e4, pawn takes e4, knight to f5, and rook to c1. So king to h2 now, h7 now, and pawn to a3, queen to f7, and pawn to b4. So now this white is having a very good space here on the queen side. Look at these pawns, they are unstoppable. At the same time, black is also having problem of his king. His king is somewhat okay, but it's not the best, because in any case, if this diagonal opens up or any of the files open up, this king is going to be exposed at maximum. So pawn a6 just trying to stop the pawns, and bishop to c4. Then we have queen to h5, bishop to e2 back, and we have queen to g6, pawn to h3 now, and rook to g8. So black is just trying to pile up in the g file. Probably rook can come to g8 after rook g7, and he will try to push this pawn or at least get h4, h5, h4 first, and then try to play the g4 move so that at least one of the file is opened in the on the king side. So we have knight h2, and I can see a comment from Raj Mathur. Hi Raj, hope you are doing well and all fit and fine. So NH2. So you can ask your questions, Raj, if you have any questions, any queries. So Bitopan also, Mr. Bitopan, you can also ask your questions. And thanks for the compliment. So yeah, you can keep asking your questions. I'll keep answering them. And meanwhile, we can also enjoy the analysis which is going on right now. So knight h2, pawn h5, bishop takes f4, g takes f4, and there is g open file here threatening a mate on g2, and we have bishop to f3 to save this check and mate. Bishop f1 was another option there, and then we have probably here d4 would have been a good move. D3, if queen takes d3, we could have played knight d4 threatening knight takes f3. That could have been an option, but of course queen can come supported. But before capturing the bishop, we could play rook d8, attacking the queen. So you should think of these moves like pawn to d3 and sacrifice there. If queen takes d3, then probably rook d8 first. If queen moves, then we can put the knight on d4 and likewise. Okay, so let's check what happened in the game. Bishop d8 was knight d8 was played, king to h1, knight to e6, rook to g8, and we have king to h6. Now the h5 pawn was hanging here, probably which was missed by white. This pawn was no, this was not missed by white because this g2 pawn was hanging. If bishop takes h5, queen takes g2 was check and mate. So a very well defense by black here and a counter play as well. So after rook g1, this bishop takes h5 is possible. Hence, black plays king h6 to save this pawn with king and queen. So now we have pawn to h5, avoiding. This is again a prophylactic move which doesn't allow this knight to come onto the g5 square, attack this f3 bishop and the e4 square and the h3 square. So h4 is a prophylactic move which stops your opponent's idea of knight to g5. Then we have bishop to d8. Now threat would be somewhere to play this pawn to f5, get this bishop onto the h4 square, and try to create some play in the on the king side here. So pawn to c6, pawn takes, rook takes, and now pawn to f5. Pawn takes f5, queen takes f5, and rook takes e6. Exchange sacrifice here. Queen takes e6 and bishop takes rook. So that's a miss from black side. Look at this, guys. Look at this combination. Okay, so rook takes c6. This bishop is indirectly attacking this rook on a8. So it starts with rook takes a6. This knight is hanging. This knight is hanging. It needs to be supported. Black had its original idea of playing f5 and supporting this knight and trying to go for the exchange. So that is what black was trying for. And unfortunately, this came in the between, and we have pawn takes f5 attacking the queen and the knight. At the same time, this bishop's diagonal is now opened, and either of the two pieces have to be saved. So queen takes f5 is forced, and now we have this beautiful move rook takes e6, giving a check, forcing the queen to exchange on e6, and this bishop will capture the a8 rook. A beautiful combination coming out there and helping us or letting us enjoy this nice moment in chess. Bishop takes h4, and we have g3, pawn takes g3, pawn takes g3, bishop takes g3, and now bishop to f3. Black still has these two parcels, but I think the position here is not the best. These three pieces against one, two, three, four are not going to hold a fortress for long. So queen d2 check, supporting this knight with a check that is gaining a tempo and with white to play now. So bishop to f4, and we have queen to f2 because both actually g1 and h2 can be supported with the queen now. And then we have rook takes g1, king takes g1, bishop takes h2, queen takes h2, and queen takes f3. So that was again a nice combination by black to recover a piece, because look at this position, guys. So queen f2, this bishop, rook takes g1, king takes g1, or actually here either moves, this f3 bishop is going to fall, because this knight is going to get, this knight is a defender of this bishop, it is going to get eliminated after bishop takes knight. So rook takes g1, king takes g1, and now bishop takes h2. King cannot capture h2, queen takes h2 is forced, and after queen takes h2, this queen takes f3 is free. So queen takes h2, queen takes f3, another nice combination in the game. And then we have queen takes e5. The queen is on e5 right now, both kings are exposed, and it is, there is a possibility, yeah, queen e3 check was given to exchange the queens, and that is something which is amazing, because after this king f8, and this, so this position is actually nice to analyze, okay, because we have a4 and b5. If we just keep this king back, if you just play a4, okay, if king to g6, and if we play b5, how is black going to stop the pawn? Because 1 2 3, 1 2 3, this is called as the magic square. If the pawn reaches the b5 square, it needs just three moves, so you just have to count 1 2 3 over here, and same you have to count here, and you have to create this square. If your opponent's king is out of this square, then this pawn can never be stopped. This is one of the best endgame techniques to learn, that is the magic square. So king cannot come and capture the pawn. So white should have just pushed this pawn to h4, pawn to a4, and pawn to b5. It would be a simple win for white here. Anyways, white played king f1. We have king to g5, king to e2, king to f4, pawn to a4, and now pawn to h4, pawn to b4, b5, pawn takes, and pawn to h3, pawn to. I think this was winning for black as well. This move, and if we just no, this is a draw because king will capture and just go back. And if the pawn was on this third rank, then there could have been a chance of winning by playing king e5. But pawn takes, then we have pawn h3, pawn to b6, pawn to h2, pawn to b7, and the queens happening first, queens happening, and there is a check. That is the difference, guys. This check is the difference. So if we just go back few moves wherein this ending started, instead of playing the king here, this pawn should have been pushed. Okay, so if king comes to e2, then there is a h3 move. Okay, and if white doesn't move the king, if pawn h5, pawn h4, if he plays pawn to a4, then we can play pawn to h3. If pawn to b5, we can just capture, and we can play pawn to h2. King will go to g2, and then we can play pawn to e2. If pawn to b6, then we can just get a queen. If pawn to b7, we can just take the queen back here and try to attack this pawn here, or just this queen e4 check, and you can capture the pawn. So it was easier plan here to win for black just by pushing the pawn this move. Okay, so that's how you have to think when you are playing the actual game. So let's go back to a tournament now and try to find the next game. What happened there? Okay, let's try to pick up a game from King Nilesh. We saw we have Reckless Devil playing from India. Let's try to check his game. Khelo Chess India. So Reckless Devil is playing against Sultan Khan. Let's check their game, guys. Reckless player is playing in the Bosak mode. E4 e6, a French defense. D4 d5, knight d2, knight to f6, pawn to e5, knight d7, knight to f3, pawn c5, pawn c3. This is the advanced variation. That Tarash, not the advanced. This is a Tarash variation of French defense, wherein white plays knight to d2, pawn to e5, knight d7, knight f3, pawn c5, pawn c3, knight c6, and we have bishop d3, queen to b6, and this is again a nice trap that white can have here because of if black just tries to capture this pawn, pawn takes, and knight takes, queen takes, and then bishop b5 check is possible, but in this case the knight is there on d7, so this won't be effective. So knight e2 is the main line which white has to continue. After knight e2, pawn takes d4, and bishop to b4 check, bishop d2, bishop takes d2, queen takes d2, and queen to b4, rook to d1, and castles we have pawn to f5. So f5 or f6 is a common break that we see in the French defense just to attack the center pawns, and in this case f5 is played just to make sure that this bishop doesn't attack, and if there is an end pass, then this knight would come to f6. Knight would come to f6. This bishop will defend the e6 square, which is the backward pawn. Rook e1 puts a lot of pressure on this e6, and then we have this open f file, which can be then be exploited by playing either knight g4 or knight e4 and creating some pressure here on the f2 square. Okay, so we have queen to g5, and then we have queen to b6, knight to f4. Now the e6 pawn is attacked, so probably f6 was the better move here, but that's okay. Let's check. Rook to so this e6 was under attack. So if knight to d4, no, that's not working right now. Knight to d8 could be the plan. Knight d8 supporting the e6, or even in worst case, knight to b8 support the pawn with the bishop. But yeah, black I think is falling short of good moves. Rook f7, knight e6, knight to e5, knight takes e5, and pawn to h6. Yep, queen g6, because here knight takes e5 might not have worked because of queen d8 check, queen d8, and then we would have exchanged the queens, and probably this still this e6 is hanging, so it might work. Okay, so pawn h6 first, and queen g6. We have knight takes e5, d takes e5, and queen takes e6, a free knight on e6. It's not actually free, but it's a nice exchange there. So hi Mr. Ferris, hope you're doing well. I can see a comment from you. And then we have queen takes e6, bishop takes e6, and rook to c1. Now the rook is dominating in the c file. If white is able to just pile up both the rooks in the c file, it might be interesting to see how the black replies then. Pawn to f4, pawn to f3, and rook to e7. So now white black has created this target on e5, which black probably will try to attack as much as possible. Pawn to g3, bishop h6, rook to e1 supporting the e5 pawn here, and then we have rook to f8. If this pawn takes, then black can just play pawn takes. So we have pawn to g4 trapping this bishop now. This bishop is trapped. Probably king is not able to come on f4, but the f4 pawn, if it falls, then king f2 and king g3 might capture the bishop for free. So we have king f7 now. King himself takes everything in its hands and tries to create some action in the center. So king rook to c5, rook to d8, and king to f2, pawn to h5, and now this is a live position, guys. So it would be interesting to see now how what would white reply. White is in tremendous time pressure. Probably this g6 is something white is looking for to create some, yeah, g6. White black himself plays g6 stopping white's pawn push. So that's nice. Now white has to think of something different. So he sacrifices the pawn on e6, bishop takes e6, and now I think okay. So black wins this one. White is timeout. Of course, this e6 was a blunder. Actually, the position is nice for both the players, but right now there is bishop takes g6 also, which can come later in the game. Uh, Rook takes d5 is not possible right now. We have bishop c2, bishop b3 can be played to attack the d5 pawn, and even then, yeah, but it's not easy to play. But yeah, there's a lot of tactics going on this pawn actually. So interesting position. We can just try to analyze it later sometime, or you can analyze at your home, guys. So let's go back to tournament and try to find the next game for you. Uh, okay, let's try to find this game. So Ganesh is playing against Terminator, that is Prayagraj Future GMs. Let's try to check what happened in the opening. E4, E5, and then we have knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5. This is the Geico piano, guys. The Geico piano is c3. This is the Italian game with queen e2 and knight to f6, bishop takes f7. Interesting sacrifice in the opening itself because we have this queen c4 check and queen takes bishop available. So queen e2 creates this magic of bishop takes f7, king takes f7, queen c4 check, and queen takes c5. Let's see how the game progressed. So king takes f7, queen c4 check, king to e8, and queen takes c4. Now the e5 pawn is hanging, so probably d6 or okay, queen e7 was played. Queen takes, king takes, and so if okay, so after queen e7, probably white should have avoided the queen exchange because now black's king is going to be stuck in the center. So he should have quickly saved the queen, got the pieces out, and then try to attack black center with c3 and d4 if possible, just to exploit this center king locked in the center. Anyways, queen was exchanged, king takes, and we have pawn to d3, rook to e8, bishop to g5, king to f7, bishop takes f6, g takes f6, knight to d2, and then we have pawn to d6. Now this bishop is going to be a good one on g4 probably. So h3 was played, a nice move again, not giving this good square for this bishop, restraining black's pieces in its own territory. So rook to g8 now, attacking the g2 pawn, pawn to g3, and pawn to f5. So black is just trying to open up some files here. So we have pawn to c3, pawn takes, and knight to d8. So probably now c6 and d5 could be played, or even the knight can go to e6. From there, it can go to this squares to get some control on the e4 again, and d3 or f3 on h3 as well. Bishop is also attacking the h3 pawn. So king to e2, and then we have knight to e6, king to e3, knight to c5, pawn to a4. Just I think now pawns will be pushed and white will try to get some space on the queen side here. So we have pawn to b6, pawn to b4, knight d7 back, and pawn to a5. bishop to b7, pawn takes, and now this a pawn can be a target for white. Just if he's able to just double up in the a file, then the a7 pawn will be a target for white. Okay, so we have rook hc1, knight f6, knight to c4. Probably this. Yeah, okay, okay, but knight takes e4 is available here. Knight takes e4 supports the d6 pawn, so there is no threat of knight takes d6. And our next move probably we can just play rook to d8. So knight takes e4, we have knight e2, knight d2, attacking the knight. Then we could have played the pawn to d4. No, but that won't work actually because of knight takes and pawn takes and knight d6. So knight takes e4 is not possible right now. It's good to defend this d6 pawn first and then attack this e4 pawn. So we have knight d2 going back and supporting the e4 pawn. Pawn to a5 now. Pawn takes. Okay. Black won the game, but let's check what happened here. Yeah. So let's quickly fast forward to the position. Yeah, a5, pawn takes a5, and rook to b1, attacking the b7 bishop. So bishop c6, rook to b6, and bishop to d7. Rook to b7, pawn to a4, knight to c4. Now this knight is making some sense here because now we have a threat like rook takes a4. If rook takes a4, then we have rook takes d7, king takes d7. If king takes d7, then we have knight b6. Check to the king and the rook, but I think knight d7, rook d7 will be answered by rook takes d7, and there won't be any point of this knight and b6 check. So if knight b6 check comes immediately, then it might make some difference. But let's check what happened in the game. King e6 was played, knight to b6, and how about bishop c6, rook to c7, and bishop takes e4. I think that was playable, bishop c6 here. Okay, so rook to d8 was played, and knight takes d7, knight takes d7, and rook to a7. We have knight to c5 here itself. Okay, so knight to c5, rook takes pawn, rook to a8, and I think a pawn was supposed to be the winning pawn for black. Let's see. Pawn to h4, rook to b3, knight to g5 check, rook f7, pawn king to g6, and rook to. Okay, so could this f4 move created any difference here? F4 or even g4 move. G4 is not. So that's I'm just looking for a mating net. So if f4 pawn takes, and we have rook takes rook, then we could have actually played. Yeah, but the king can escape from this h5 and g4 square, so nothing. So yeah, probably interesting move, interesting position. Mating net has to be found out here. So rook a1, rook takes c3, king to d2, rook d3 check, king c2, pawn to a3, and rook to c7, rook to d4, king to c3, rook knight takes e4, knight takes e4, and rook takes e4. So probably that is the one move which might have created some weaknesses in white's camp. So rook to d4, king b3, and king to h5, rook to c3, rook to d2 now, attacking this f2 pawn, and also making sure this path is vacant for the d pawn to be pushed. So rook takes now, rook takes, king takes, and rook takes f2, rook to d3, rook goes back to f6 and supports the d6 pawn. Now the difference here is that this king is nearer to the pawns which can be attacked very quickly, and this king is far away, which is not going to help white in any way. So we have king to b3, rook to pawn to e4, king to rook to d5 check, king to g4, pawn to h5, pawn to e3, king to c2, king takes g3, and now these two passers versus this single passer I think is losing for white now. So king to f2, and I think this is where white resigned because this pawn push is unstoppable. Let's go back to tournament, guys, and try to find the next game. Okay, we have next game between. Let's try to pick up some games from here. We have seen all the games between. Okay, let's try to pick up Kamesh game. Kamesh is from Is he playing? Okay, let's check his game. Let's check the live position instead of the opening. So this is a position, guys, and queen is to d3 now. Queen d3, and this position is actually quite okay for black. Knight has to come back to the f5 now. So thanks Bitopan. Bitopan says good game. Thanks Bitopan for the compliments, and it was really a nice game. So knight can now be played to this f5 square again back because it's hanging. It's not actually hang. It's been supported by bishop. I think f5 is the right move now. If the queen moves, then we have knight to c2 check and knight takes rook. So queen captures the knight. So we have queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, and rook takes queen. So this would be a good position for black to play now. Why not to just capture the queen? Because now if white survives this one, then white would have an extra piece, extra bishop out there, right? So this was not the best move out there. Queen takes queen was forced here. Queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, and rook takes. That would have left both the pieces, both the players with the equal number of minor and major pieces. The only battle would have been of these pawns versus these pawns. Okay, I think castling is now possible for white if he hasn't moved his king. Yep, that's done. Bishop takes c4, and I think now rook e1 can be, or even this pawn to d6 is a good move. Pawn d6, rook e1 first, and pawn d6 will be a good move, creating some tactics over here. Yeah, bishop d2 and knight c3 can be played now. Now knight c3 will be played. Knight c3, but this d4 pawn is hanging, so yeah, why black ran out of time. But this move, queen move, was not the right one, guys. Just going to the that position where black blundered. Queen d3 here. Bishop f5 was the right move, and queen takes e3 actually should have been replied with queen takes e3. That would have been a better way to continue. Bishop takes e3, rook takes e3, probably king f2 then, and queen rook could have come back. So that was a better position if as compared to what black had here. Okay, let's go back now to the tournament and try to find the next game. Okay, so no questions right now in the comment section and no request for the games to be analyzed. So we'll pick up a random game now. Let's try to check this game between a 2000 rated player versus a 1900 rated player. Almost 2000, 1989. So let's check what happened in the opening. E4, E6 is a French defense. D4, D5, E5 is called as the advanced variation of the French defense. Then we have pawn to C5, pawn to C3, knight to C6, knight to F3, queen to B6, and then we have pawn to A3. So A3 idea is to play B4 in the game and not to give much space for black on the queen side. Of course, stopping all the threats of knight B4, bishop b4 check, everything is stopped by this a3 move, and also this bishop can go to b2 and support this d4 pawn. So that is one of the ideas behind the a3 move. Let's check what happened in the game, guys. So bishop d7, bishop e2, pawn takes d4, pawn takes d4, knight to e7, knight to c3, knight to f5, and knight to a4. So this is the way to defend this d4 pawn, which will be attacked multiple times by black in the advanced variation of French defense. Queen to a4 check, we have bishop d2, and queen goes back to c7, and we have rook to c1. So now d4 pawn is again not capturable as this knight is pinned here. So probably we'll have pawn a6 and castles, pawn b5, knight to c5, knight to d4, and I think knight takes d4, knight takes d4, and we have knight takes e6. I think knight takes e2 will be played first. Knight takes e2 check, queen takes e2, and queen moves to b7. So this knight takes e6 was again the disturbing move for black, because now black's king is still stuck in the center. His bishops are not developed. His bishop d7 is bishop is fine. F8 bishop is not developed. Rooks are stuck in the corners. But if you look at white's pieces, white is having his king castled. White is having his rooks developed. At least one rook is in the open file, and this rook can come soon in the open file as well. Then we have some attacking piece here. Knight is on e6 is a superb attacking piece. Then we have queen developed. We have open center here, which we can use to attack on this king. So I think white is lot better here. Let's check how black has responded after knight c7. King to d8, knight takes rook, king queen takes, and bishop to g5, king to e8. Rook to c7, we have pawn to h6, bishop h4, pawn to g5, and bishop g6. We have bishop e7, just hoping against the hope of getting a castle done after queen d8 probably. So we have pawn to e6 and f takes e6, queen h5 check, king to d8. This is live position, guys, and we have rook doubling in the c file now. Uh, Bishop e5 would also be interesting, because then rook has to be moved somewhere on the g file or somewhere. Yeah, now this queen f7 is a nice move because it allows bishop d6 move. If bishop takes d6, then we have queen d7 check and mate. So bishop d6 will be coming very soon now. Yeah, to defend it, we have queen to d5. Now this bishop move is not possible. We still have rook takes d7, queen takes d7. If queen takes d7, then we have bishop c7 check. Then king to c8, and we have this bishop d6 check again. King will go to d8. We have repetition from white side, at least if rook d7 and queen d7 is played. Yeah, rook d7, queen d7 is forced, because if rook takes d7, king takes d7, then we have rook c7 check with the support of the bishop. King moves anywhere, we will have queen takes e7 check and mate. So rook takes d7, queen takes d7 is forced. Then we will have this bishop to c7 check, king to c8, and bishop can come to a5, again delivering a check with the rook. And then king can probably go to this mm, b8 square. Then rook can come to the c7 square, queen is attacked, and the bishop on e7 can be captured later on. So that could have been the possibility of rook takes d7 move. Now bishop c7 check is available. I think that would be almost a game over for black. Yeah, queen takes d7, e7 is now winning completely. Oh, there is a mate on g2. Don't forget this. Rook takes. There is a mate on g2. A nice counterplay by black here. We should not underestimate black's player. Look at the beautiful move. Bishop takes c6. A slight mistake from white, and the game is gone. So now probably after if king e8, then we king d8 and queen e7 is check and mate. So we have to play. Black has to play this king b8, and then we have this rook to c6 check. Yep, rook c6 will be played now. So this mate was a beautiful mate, guys, and which had to be taken care of. And now I think just d2 is the only hope. King moves, and we will have queen takes e7 now. But the rook is hanging. Oh, sacrifice! A sacrifice on e7. King takes e7, queen e7 check, king to a6. What's coming after that? After king to a6, what is white going to play after king to a6? Is there any winning move now? Now the threat is to play rook to c6 check and checkmate the king here. It's difficult to save now. So d2 and rook c6 check. Yeah, the queen takes c6, queen takes c6, and queen d5 should be sufficient to stop this queening move. Bishop check, and I think there should be a checkmate soon. King to b8, queen check. Yeah, queen d6 and queen takes pawn can be played now. The simplest way to win the game now just to capture the pawn. And here black resigned. A very nice game, a beautiful threat from black here to deliver mate on g2, which was well identified and defended by white here. So let's go back to tournament, guys, and try to pick up the next game. Let's try to pick up this game. My Shakti and Ganesh. My Shakti is playing from Khelo Chess India. Ganesh is from the Chennai Chess Club. And let's check what happened in the opening. So d4, e6, c4, d5, queen's gambit declined, knight c3, c6 a Slav defense or semi-Slav you can say, knight to f3, and then we have knight f6, bishop to g5, bishop to d6, pawn to e3. So this all in most of this queen's gambit declined or Slav, you are going to get a Carlsbad pawn structure which you have to face, and you should know ideas behind the same. So we have knight to d7, rook to c1, and then pawn to h6, bishop to h4, castles, and bishop to d3, rook to e8, pawn takes, and this is now the Carlsbad pawn structure. This pawn chain versus this pawn chain. So you need to understand, you need to study all these pawn structures, and then it will help you to understand or to identify which kind of plan you should implement while playing this opening. Okay, so Carlsbad pawn structure, that is something that you can uh, Google out. Castles, pawn to g5, knight bishop to g3, bishop takes g3, pawn takes g3, king to g7, and now we have bishop to b1, knight to f8, queen to d3, and then we have knight to e4, knight to e5, pawn to f6, knight comes back to f3. So a lot of holes on this g6 and h7, but this knight is currently kind of defending them, so nothing to worry about as of now, but it would be better that these holes are sealed off very quickly by either getting some more defenses or at least getting the bishop on f5 and to g6 so that this queen and bishop becomes ineffective. So we have bishop f5 coming immediately, knight d2 and knight takes g3. This was probably the mistake. And we have pawn to e4. The queen cannot go anywhere right now. Queen cannot go to c4, nor to b5, nor to a6, nor to e2. So all the squares are blocked and bishop is attacking this queen. So to save the queen, this pawn move is compulsory, and now knight can come back. This queen was threatening to capture the knight. So the knight has to come back on e4 and try to save the game. So knight takes e4, knight takes e4, pawn takes e4, and queen to g3. So we have a queen to b8 now as black is pawn up. Look at this, 4 pawns versus 2 pawns here. So the probability of black's winning have increased. So black is going for a queen exchange because ending is going to be in black's favor. White should try to avoid the queen exchange here if possible. Queen e3 was played. Queen to f4 and rook to e1. Queen takes, rook takes, and now rook to. Probably here, actually, pawn takes might have been a better move because then rook f1 could have been a stronger candidate in the f file just to attack this weaker backward pawn. And e4 pawn could have been a target here, but anyways, rook takes e3 was played. Now there are three attackers on this e4 pawn, rook d8, and we could have captured this, but white thought of first supporting the pawn by playing rook to d1, and then we have knight to g6, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, rook takes e4, rook takes e4, bishop takes e4, and now knight to f4. We have pawn to g3. Oh, interesting move, because if rook takes d4, then we have this beautiful fork on e2, forking the king and the rook here. So we have rook to e1, knight to g6, and bishop goes to g2, and then we have knight to e5, pawn to b3, rook to d2, pawn to a4, pawn to g4, and now it's the talent of black here, how he uses his extra pawn on the queen side as well as the extra pawn here on the king side. It's your endgame talent now, endgame skills, which matters. Many players tend to lose from these winning positions also, so you have to be very careful here. You cannot just ignore, or you cannot just be playing with a blind side here. It's not easy for black, as you can look here. Black is struggling to just get the pawns rolling. Yeah, now I think we have this. Okay, knight went back to e5 and rook h8, king to g7, rook takes h5, Knight to g6. So you can still see that black is not completely winning here. White is making him struggle. White is making him fight here to prove that he can win. So bishop is not being exchanged. Bishop just was taken here. This is what you have to do, guys. You have to just keep playing, try creating some good moves on the board. And now I think knight e7 is going to come very soon. Knight to g4. Okay, supporting this g4 as well as this c6. So you have to just try and creating some play out there with which you can try to capture the pawns. Don't exchange your pieces. Okay, you will be tempted to exchange your pieces, but don't exchange your pieces. Instead of that, when you have less pawns, just try to put more pressure on your opponent's pawns out there, opponent's pieces out there, so that you get the some kind of play, some tactics, and you might get a win after that. Yeah. Now this will be difficult for black to survive. Actually, black should have played here rook a2 when the king was played to f4, so that the f2 pawn could have been attacked, and then king would have to come back to e3. That would have helped black to come on to the g4, g5, and pawn f5. So black missing a trick out there, I think, and this might help white now to win, in fact. So the tables have turned suddenly. King has to come on f6, guys. Okay, on f5 check now. Don't go to h4. It's a mate on h1. King has to come to f3. It's forced. Yep. Rook check, and now it's going to be the queen. So white misses the trick. White should not have played rook a7. Should have kept the rook on the a6 square, which would have helped him to keep some pressure. And this is going to be winning for black. But let's go back and check the position where rook a6 was played. Okay, so this was the position, guys, and you have to keep this pawn pinned actually. Okay, checkmate. Black won this one. Let's go back to that position, guys. Yeah, this is the position. Rook a6 was played here, and that actually allowed black to play pawn to f5. So it's difficult actually what to play. Probably pawn f5 is the only move which is remaining here. If king h4 or h3, if king h4 or king h8, it will be blunder because of rook h1 check and pawn can be pushed. Same is the case with king f3 because of rook f1 check and the pawn will be pushed. So king cannot go to either of these files nor to this. The only escape was this f5 square which is now controlled by this king. So probably f5 is the only move here remaining, and after king moves, you just have to keep playing the rook in this open file. Okay, so f pawn f5, king h6, and now then king to a rook to a7. So black has no moves left in that case. Black will have to move the rook, and then this pawn can be captured. So f5, king has to go to g7, and then rook check. Probably king comes to h6, then rook can again come to. So these moves can be kept repeating, and it might be surviving guide for white out there. So white missed out these chances and he instead played rook a7, which allowed black to just play f5, king f3, and rook f1 was completely winning now. So let's go back to the tournament, guys, and last 6 minutes remaining to conclude this beautiful battle which is going on right now. We have one more game we can take now, and let's check. Khelo Chess India on second place today. We are playing beautifully. Still a huge gap between first and the second place. Then we have closely Chess Blasters have been coming up very clear close to second position. Then we have Chennai Chess Club on the 89, Kings of 64 Squares on 59. So second, third, and fourth positions. These are very close. Any team can just come on the top and be on the second place. But winners are going not going to be touched by anyone right now. There's a huge bit difference between both the players. So Ved Saini is playing from Prayagraj Future GMs. Let's try to find his game. He is not playing right now. Who is playing from the Unusual is playing from the Prayagraj. Let's try to check their game now. Unusual and Shibam Gautam. They both are playing. So I think it was Dutch defense. Yeah, d4 f5 was a Dutch defense. c4 e6 g3 knight to f6. Now bishop g2 bishop b4 check knight c3 castles knight f3 pawn d6 castles bishop takes c3 b takes c3 and pawn to c6. Okay, now sorry, knight to c6 queen c2 and knight to e7. So in many cases, this bishop is it's very difficult to develop this bishop. But as now pawn has been pushed to d6, probably e5 can be played sometime in the game, this break. And this knight would go to probably the g6 square. So rook to b1, b6, knight to g5, and this e6 pawn is now attacked. So we will be having. I thought h6 was on the cards here. Rook was hanging over here. Bishop takes rook was a threat here. An indirect attack on the rook. So pawn to c5, bishop to b7. Ah, I think now e6 is going to be the problem. This is not going to help black anyhow because this e6 will actually lose a exchange for the black. Black should have first played h6, driven this knight away, and then he could have played bishop to b7. So bishop to b7, bishop takes b7, rook takes b7, knight takes e6, queen to e8, and knight to f8, queen to f8. And I think white is already winning here. Look at this pawns. This is all. This is a weak pawn on d6, which is immediately attacked by white here. Exchange is gone. So probably white is going to win this one very, very easily. Rook to f7, rook to c3, rook to c1 supporting the c3 pawn. So this is live position, guys. And here black can play g6, okay, just trying to. And knight g4 I think is now expected. Knight g4 threatening the f2. Pawn f3 is expected again. Pawn f3 will help. No, knight e3 cannot be played because of pawn to c4. Pawn f3 should be just fine for. Yeah, pawn f3, knight e3, pawn to c4, knight takes f1, king takes f1, and knight can then go back to f6. But that should be still okay for white because white would be having a beautiful center out there with this e4 pawn after f3, and white can survive this one very easily. So it's a difficult position for black to play now because after f3 there is not going to be much of the attack remaining now. f3, knight e3, we also have rook f2, and the idea is to play c4 so that this knight is attacked. So anyways, this knight can go anywhere. This knight can go. We have this beautiful e4 move. So h3 and knight f2 is now being allowed. Why is knight f2 being allowed here? I think, is it a time pressure? Knight h3 check, king g2, and we have rook f2 check. Rook takes f2. Oh, knight e3 check. A beautiful check out there to this king. Look at the time pressure, guys. Look at them. White's actually the time pressure is killing white right now. That's what happens when probably you play in the Berserk mode. I think black was playing in the Berserk mode here. White was playing in the Berserk mode, and he has resigned. He's timed out. So let's go back to tournament. A nice game coming to a nice end. So very nice tournament. Last 1 minute and 20 seconds are remaining. So probably I will not take the next game right now. Probably a good news for all of you that we will be starting a new program wherein you can join us on the live commentary if you want to share your story on chess, of your life, of your experiences, how you got rating, who was your coach, what amazing experiences you had in chess. I would be happy to have you joining us on this live broadcast. We will be displaying your photo as well as your profile, which everyone who is actually watching the live broadcast will be able to know you. And even if you have your classes or if you have want to promote your coaching, then you can definitely join our live broadcast. Even if you want to promote your tournament, you can also join our live broadcast. It's a beautiful platform for all of the chess players to be famous and to make their name in this chess world. So that's all for you guys. Just let me know in the comment section if you're interested in coming live on this broadcast. I will be happy to arrange a Skype call with you and you will be live on this channel. So that's the new activity that we have started. And meanwhile, the tournament is coming to an beautiful and a beautiful games and beautiful combinations that we were able to enjoy today. And again, tomorrow we'll be enjoying the same tournament. So right now the tournament has finished. Prayagraj Future GMs are on top with 170 points, a huge lead from the second Chennai Chess Club, which have finished on 112, just 2 points ahead of Khelo Chess India, a short margin with which actually the Chennai Chess Club have beyond the second position. Khelo Chess India has performed well today again after many days. They are on third place with 110 points. Then we have Chess Blasters on fourth place with Sony Atharva 21 points, 105 points. Chess Blasters have scored, and we have Avi Chess Club on 72, Kings of 64 scores on 64, Golden Castle Chess Club on 53, Team Future on 37, Karnataka Stunners on 5. I'm sorry, Karnataka Stunners, we could not add your team today. And I can see a bye bye from Bitopan Sharma. Yes, Bitopan, thank you for joining the stream and hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. And then we had on 10th position Khelo Chess, Kids Chess Academy on 10 positions. The question from Bitopan Sharma is how to improve your tactics. So puzzles, and puzzles is the answer for improving your tactics. You have to solve at least 50 puzzles every day so that if you solve 50 puzzles every day, I'm sure within a month or two you can see a huge difference in your game. And don't play bullet games. Bullet games kill your tactical play, okay, tactical ability. That's what actually I have experienced myself by playing too much of bullet games. Play 5 plus 3 or play 3 plus 2, that's okay. 3 plus 2 is the max, don't go play 2 plus 1. 3 plus 2 is the max that you should play. You should not play any games lesser than that if you want to improve your tactics. And solve 50 puzzles every day. Now, where to solve? You can just go to there's a learn section here in the, I'm just minimizing this window so that you can see here. So this is the Leech's website. You can go to the learn option and then you can click on puzzles. Once you click on puzzles, you get options of solving the tactics and puzzles every day, and there is no limit. You can see here it's your turn. Find the best move for white. You have to find the best move, and if you don't know, you can just click on the view solution so that you can get the best move for white here. This is what you have to do every day. 50 puzzles every day you have to solve to get your game into a very good position and very good level. And you have to study. If you want to be a professional chess player, you have to study 3 hours minimum every day. Okay, so that's the answer for you, Bitopan. And we have I can see a comment from Nilesh Gupta. Yes, Nilesh, bullet kills your ideas and tactics. Agreed. Yes, that is my personal experience also. So I am probably going to stop my bullet chess. It's killing my tactics. I can see a lot of difference in my game in last 3 to 4 months due to excess bullets. So keep practicing, guys. Keep solving puzzles. Keep analyzing your games. I'm always there for you to help you out. If you need anything, just mention in the comment section. As soon as I get time, I will always reply to your questions, queries, and make sure that you never stop learning and improve every day with help of our beautiful channel, Khelo Chess India. So this is Amir Sawan saying goodbye. And okay, I can see a thank you so much from Bitopan Sharma. Thanks to you to Bitopan for joining the live stream. Hope you come back tomorrow to again watch the live stream. So that's all for today. It's night, guys. I think it's already to at 10:34, so we should be. It's time for us to stop the live broadcast and meet again tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. IST with this beautiful Khelo Chess India team battles, which gives us beautiful games and beautiful tactics to enjoy every day.